While the mainstream media spins stories about criminal migrants, explosive new data makes it impossible to turn a blind eye any longer. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. The migrant crisis had spiraled into chaos thanks to sheer incompetence and gross mismanagement. As you can see in this graph from the Heritage Foundation, according to numbers from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, there has been a steep increase in the number of encounters with illegal immigrants since the Biden administration came to office. Under Biden and Harris's leadership, there have been over 10 million encounters with illegal immigrants. And now we know many of these encounters were with criminal immigrants. Some of these criminals have even been accused of committing murder after being released by border agents, which is a fun thing to remind someone whenever they say everyone deserves a second chance. So despite the popular narrative, migrant crime is a real thing. Unfortunately, it may also be a larger problem than people realize. According to ICE data shared to Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas, as of July 21st, 2024, there were over 662,000 non-citizens with criminal convictions or pending criminal charges on ICE's national docket, which tracks cases of non-citizens under the agency's supervision. That's over 10 times the amount of people that can fit in the stadium where the Raiders play, with many of them somehow more terrifying than Raiders fans. And of those non-citizens associated with crime, ICE only has a small fraction of them detained. So, legit criminal aliens. Exactly how many are detained by ICE? Most of them, right? Actually, just less than 1,500. Which means over 647,000 non-citizens with convictions and pending criminal charges aren't being detained. But hey, I'm sure they wouldn't let the really dangerous ones roam free, right? Wrong, this includes tens of thousands with convictions and pending charges for homicide and sexual assault, as well as assault, dangerous drugs, robbery, and more. But hey, I'm sure being free in this wonderful land of opportunity will fill them with such gratitude, they'll turn over a new leaf and be on their best behavior. Yeah, that's how murderers operate. Now, as bad as the numbers seem, and oh boy, they seem bad, like really bad, it's important to think about the context where those numbers came from to get a better and more accurate picture. So, with that being the case, it's time for another segment of Wait, is that true? The first thing to point out is that many of those criminal migrants listed in the ICE data crossed into the U.S. under previous administrations, not just Biden's or his border czars. The spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security said the data given to Gonzalez actually goes back over 4 decades. I can't tell if that makes me feel better or worse knowing that this has been a problem as long as I've been alive. Well, definitely not better, that's for sure. But don't worry, this is typical. There have been quite a large number of convicted migrant criminals not under ICE detainment for quite some time. Way back in 2016, the DHS Inspector General reported that there were over 368,000 convicted criminal migrants on the non-detained docket. Fast forward 5 years, and in 2021, according to an ICE budget justification report, there were over 405,000 convicted criminal migrants, an increase of over 36,000 criminals. How does that work? They're found guilty, then set free as long as they super-duper pinky promise to come back for their sentencing? Well, keep in mind that both reports excluded migrants with pending criminal charges. They only included convicted criminals. Seeing as the number of non-detained convicted criminals under Biden increased by almost 20,000 since 2021, it would not be surprising if the number of migrants with pending criminal charges also grew. So it's been happening for a while. But why are so many criminal migrants not being detained? There are a few reasons. According to law enforcement officials talking to NBC News, migrants in ICE's non-detained docket are not currently in detention either because they are not prioritized for detention, they are serving time in a jail or prison for their crimes, or because ICE cannot find them. Totally puts my mind at ease knowing that one of the 3 reasons is ICE lost track of criminals. As for ICE, it says cases on the non-detained docket include aliens who are both pre- and post-final order, and who have been released on parole, bond, an order of recognizance, an order of supervision, or who are from countries where ERO is in the process of obtaining the necessary travel documents for repatriation. So while many of the reasons given are completely unsatisfactory, There do seem to be some legit reasons why some criminal immigrants are not currently being detained. So as always, it's much more complicated than the media makes it out to be, whichever propaganda outlet you follow. But this brings up another important question. How many of the non-detained migrants are actually serving time? Who knows? Even ICE itself isn't always in the know about that kind of data from state and local law enforcement agencies. In fact, many sanctuary cities, like New York City, don't cooperate with ICE when it comes to migrant crime because they want to keep illegal immigrants from getting deported. It wasn't until things got really bad with crime that some things started to change. Some sanctuary states are now reportedly cooperating with ICE, telling them when they release illegal immigrants from jail, though others are still opting to ignore ICE's request to detain migrant criminals, sometimes with disastrous consequences. Because nothing makes you more woke than child abuse, since you won't be able to sleep at night after causing this. But the thing is, not even sanctuary cities know the extent of their migrant crime. Remember, that's a feature, not a bug. Former NYPD Chief Kenneth Corey said, quantifying crimes committed by migrants is nearly impossible because the police aren't allowed to ask about a suspect's immigration status. It's also hard to say just how many migrants coming in have committed crimes outside of the US. Because, and I don't mean to stereotype or generalize, criminals sometimes lie. And ICE doesn't always have easy access to other countries' criminal databases. In fact, there are plenty of cases where the US allows migrants in only to learn later that those same migrants have criminal records. So for all we know, the actual number of criminal migrants on US soil could be much higher than what official data states. Remember, we're only dealing with criminal migrants that the US has identified, and ICE doesn't have a great record of keeping track of criminals. So without a doubt, there are lots of criminal illegal migrants who have slipped through the cracks. Need proof? Look no further than how the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua has been making headlines with violent crime across the US. And according to the New York Post, Border Patrol only started keeping tabs on them last year. Don't you feel all warm inside knowing that we know so little of the criminal illegal immigrants we're letting in? If you want to learn more about Tren de Aragua, check out an explainer I recently did on them. So this is all to say, we don't really have a good picture as to the real situation with criminal migrants. There are simply way too many gaps in the data to get a good idea of what's really going on. So the media certainly isn't helping. And since we're talking about migrants in media, it's practically impossible to not talk about how politicized migrant criminality has become. Like I said in past episodes, it seems like people on the political right and left live in completely different worlds. Trump loves to bring up migrant crime, while left-leaning mainstream media can't help but focus on disproving him. Whenever you hear talk about migrant crime, oftentimes you'll see the mainstream media bringing up research showing how immigrants are less likely to commit crime than native-born Americans. The conclusion they want people to come to is that there is no connection between immigration and crime. Okay, but that's not the issue. No one's saying they commit crimes because they're immigrants. The New York Times goes so far as to suggest that more immigration means less murder, saying U.S. rates of crime and immigration have moved in opposite directions in recent years. After illegal immigration plummeted in 2020, the murder rate rose. And after illegal immigration spiked in 2021 and 2022, murderers plateaued and then fell. Yep. Because absolutely nothing else happened in 2020 that could have possibly affected stats. Nope, nothing at all. Move along. The thing is, left-leaning mainstream media is afraid that anything showing migrants negatively will make discrimination against them worse. But they're missing the point of why so many people are angry with migrant crime. People are angry that there are crimes that could have been prevented had illegal immigrants not been let in. The whole focus on migrant crime rates sounds tone-deaf to a lot of people, especially those who have to deal with migrant crime. Contrast this to how the media treats the unproven threat of white supremacy. Remember how left-leaning media raised the alarm over white supremacy in the military, only to realize they overhyped it? Turns out there wasn't an exorbitant rise in white supremacists in the military. You certainly didn't hear the mainstream media treat the white supremacist crime rate the same way they treat migrant crime rates. This is all to say migrant crime is a very real concern. It's one of many reasons why the U.S. needs to get its act together, fix its border security, and bring migrant crime rates down. Without it, we'll be seeing a lot more of this. And unfortunately, a lot of this as well. Thank you for watching America Uncovered. Here's another episode I know you're going to enjoy. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.